Okay, we want to take you back to the White House right now. President Donald Trump was on the podium just a few moments ago speaking about a huge court ruling from the Supreme Court. Right now we're seeing Attorney General Pam Bondi speaking, so let's listen in.
No longer will we have rogue judges striking down President Trump's policies across the entire nation. No longer. Today, in the 6-3 opinion, Justice Barrett correctly holds that the district court lacks authority to enter nationwide or universal injunctions. These lawless injunctions gave relief to everyone in the world instead of the parties before the court. As the Supreme Court held today, they turned district courts into the imperial judiciary. Active liberal judges have used these injunctions to block virtually all of President Trump's policies. To put this in perspective, there are 94 federal judicial districts. 5 of those districts throughout this country held 35 of the nationwide injunctions. Think about that. 94 districts. And 35 out of the 40 opinions with nationwide injunctions came from 5 liberal districts in this country. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have blocked our policies from tariffs to military readiness to immigration to foreign affairs, fraud, abuse, and many other issues. The judges have tried to seize the executive branch's power, and they cannot do that. No longer. No longer. And on immigration, on a side note, today marks 2,711 arrests on these terrorists and these gangs. Total arrest today with HSI investigations. And thank you, Stephen Miller. Thank you to Homeland Security. Thank you to everyone working hand in hand with the FBI on all of these transnational gangs. TDA has been a huge terror to our country, as well as MS-13, as well as Sinaloa cartels. No longer. No longer. These injunctions have allowed district court judges to be emperors. They vetoed all of President Trump's power, and they cannot do that. This has been a bipartisan problem that has lasted 5 presidential terms, 5 different presidents, and it has ended today. We will continue to fight for President Trump's policies. I want to thank the Office of White House Counsel, Dave Warrington. You and your staff have been incredible. Our Solicitor General's office, John Sauer, Sarah Harris, and Todd Blanche and Emil Bovey. Todd's going to say a few words because we've had another major ruling today on transgender books and some other great wins that we've had. But no longer will they have this power in our country. It is the president's authority under his executive branch to do everything to fight for the American people, and he will continue to do that. That's why he was overwhelmingly elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Today's a great day for the rule of law. It's a great day for the Justice Department, and it's one that's been a long time coming and one that every American should have been waiting for with bated breath. And so I echo what the President said and Attorney General Bondi, that the Supreme Court did a great thing today, not only for this administration, but for every American in this country. If not for the injunctions case, we would be here talking about another great decision that came down today, the trans books case, which restores parents' rights to decide their child's education. Seems like a basic idea, but it took the Supreme Court to set the record straight, and we thank them for that. And now that ruling allows parents to opt out of dangerous trans ideology and make the decisions for their children that they believe is correct. And so we thank the Supreme Court for that. There's been multiple decisions over the past several weeks that just show why this nationwide injunction ban had to happen. For example, what I mean by that is local district court judges issuing decisions that are clearly contrary to law just because they don't like the policy of President Trump. And when it gets to the Supreme Court has to correct it. But that takes time. The Attorney General thanked our lawyers, and I'll do it again. Our lawyers are working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to fight these injunctions and to emergency appeals, emergency stays, going back to the district court judge, asking them to change their view. And so their hard work is really paying off today, but over the past few weeks. We had a stay of an order that prevented DHS from moving aliens to a third country. We had a stay of an order that stopped the Department of Defense from implementing military readiness, the EO that President Trump signed. We had another stay of an order forcing reinstatement of fired executive branch employees, entirely within the President in Article 2, his right to do. We had a stay of, as you all know, of numerous DOJ cases. And again, every one of those stays requires a tremendous amount of work and effort by the lawyers and parties involved, and they should be doing other work. They should be doing the work that the President and this administration demands and has a right to demand, and not fighting these local judges who don't make decisions based on the law. They make decisions because they just simply don't agree with the administration's decision about a policy, and that's wrong. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, for Pam, please.
Go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Attorney General. So, as you know, the Supreme Court did not rule on the underlying constitutionality of the President's birthright citizenship order. So, what is the plan now? Are you going to try to implement the EO just in states where there isn't a legal challenge?
Yes, so birthright citizenship will be decided in October in the next session by the Supreme Court, unless it comes down in the next few minutes. I guess it could come down. I think they're still deliberating right now on some cases. As you heard, we just got transgender books, which is a huge win. But most likely, that will be decided in October in the next session. However, it indirectly impacts us because, as you correctly pointed out, if there's a birthright citizenship case in Oregon, it will only affect the plaintiff in Oregon, not the entire country. So yes, it's indirectly, but that's pending litigation, and we're waiting on that in the next term.
And how concerned are you that the Supreme Court will come back and determine that the executive order is unconstitutional?
Oh, we're very confident in the Supreme Court. But again, it's pending litigation, and that will directly be determined in October, but it indirectly impacts every case in this country, and we're thrilled with their decision today. Peter.
Madam Attorney General, thank you for being here to take our questions. A couple questions to the both of you. The EO had a 30-day grace period before it goes into effect. Is there any thought about trying to make it effective immediately within that period of time?
We're going to follow the law. We're going to make those decisions, and we're going to do what's right in the bounds of the law.
And then the DOJ didn't ask the justices to rule on the merits of the birthright citizenship ban. Just for explanation purposes, why?
Sure, because that's going to come down in October in the separate. This was huge because it's indirectly impacted today. As I said, it's case by case. Let me reiterate, of the 35 of the 40 nationwide injunctions filed against this president, against his executive authority as President of the United States, 35 of them came from Maryland, D.C., Massachusetts, California, Washington. I mean, that's crazy. These 5 districts. So yes, it indirectly impacts us. It will be a separate decision in October. Next question.
Thank you, Mr. President. A question for you, sir. Do you believe this ends the power of the lower court judges to stop your agenda? Do you see this as a full green light for your agenda going forward?
Well, you'd have to really speak to the lawyers about that. But this is really also a decision based on common sense. It didn't work the other way. It was a disaster where somebody from a certain location in a very liberal state, or a liberal judge, or a liberal group of judges could tie up a whole country for years, because their decision would sometimes take years to overturn. We've overturned many of the decisions, but it would take years to do it. And we have to act quickly when it comes to illegal immigration. We have murderers, killers, we have drug dealers, we have what they've allowed to come into our country. Should never be forgotten. It should never be forgotten what they've done to our country, and we have to be able to act very quickly, and we're going to do that. Thank you.
Justice Amy Coney Barrett, sir, I know that you praised her and her opinion here in this case. She has taken some heat, though, from some of your supporters who have labeled her weak, a squishy, a rattled law professor. What is your take on that?
I don't know about that. I just have great respect for her. I always have, and her decision was brilliantly written today. From all accounts, yeah.
Transgender ruling, Mr. President. What would you say to Americans who fear that this is more and more concentration of power in the White House and the executive?
Well, this really brings back the Constitution. This is what it's all about, and this is really the opposite of that. I mean, the question is fine, but it's the opposite. The Constitution has been brought back.
Thank you so much, President Trump. Illegal crossings on the border are 0 now.
0. Does everyone hear that?
Trump 2028!
Do you intend, President Trump?
Who's that guy? I like him. He's working the cameras.
With this new reality, President Trump, in the border, do you intend to engage personally with leaders from South America, not only Central America, in order to tackle this situation in a different way? And if you have a perspective of meeting some presidents from South America, as Brazil, for example.
Well, you see, as an example, not South America, but NATO over the weekend. They have great respect for our country now. They did things that nobody thought was possible. They took funding from 2% to 5%. Nobody thought they'd ever pay the 2%, and now they're paying the 5%. It's over $1 trillion more a year. Think of that, $1 trillion. Nobody thought that could happen. That's a different group of people, different countries. But we get along with a lot of countries. We are respected again. Our country, the U.S., is respected again. Was not respected 6 months ago, I can tell you.
Can we ask about the
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Mr. President, you have a deadline coming up on trade in 2 weeks. Which countries, if any, on trade, on tariffs?
Yeah.
Sir, which countries, if any, are close to agreements with the administration?
Well, that's an interesting question. We've made a deal with China. We've made a deal with probably 4 or 5 different countries. With the UK, it was a great deal for both. And we're in the process of making some others. But ultimately, in fact, Scott is here, and Howard Lutnick, these 2 guys have been doing an incredible job, and the people that work with them have been doing an incredible job. But, you know, we have 200 countries, you could say 200 countries plus. We can't do that. So at a certain point over the next week and a half or so, or maybe before, we're going to send out a letter. We talked to many of the countries, and we're just going to tell them what they have to pay to do business in the United States. And it's going to go very quickly. But some of the bigger countries, so India, I think we're going to reach a deal where we have the right to go in and trade. Right now it's restricted. You can't walk in there. You can't even think about it. We're looking to get a full trade barrier dropping, which is unthinkable. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. But as of this moment, we've agreed to that, go into Indian trade. We're going to be trading in China. That's going to come a little bit down the road, but we're going to be trading in China. We have a lot of great things going, and we're getting along with countries, but some will be disappointed because they're going to have to pay tariffs. And we've taken in already hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs. No inflation. The only problem we have is we have a Fed guy that doesn't understand what's happening, and it would be great if he'd lower the rate because we'd be able to borrow a lot cheaper. Yeah, go ahead, please. Why don't we keep it on this subject? This is such a big subject. You know what? Trade is so big, but this, I don't know, in a certain way, this might be bigger than trade. I think this is bigger than trade. Yes, please, go ahead.
I was wondering, though, if you could...
Go ahead.
Sir, on the transgender ruling, the Supreme Court ruling that parents with religious objections can pull their kids out of public school lessons that use LGBTQ materials. Pam brought it up. Your reaction to that ruling today, sir?
I think the ruling was a great ruling, and I think it's a great ruling for parents. It's really a ruling for parents. They lost control of the schools. They lost control of their child. And this is a tremendous victory for parents. And I'm not surprised by it, but I am surprised that it went this far. It took us to bring life back to normal. So it's wonderful. It's parental. And I kept saying, we will give you back your parental rights. They were taken away, and this is a tremendous victory for parents. Yeah.
Mr. President, if you look at the back at the last week, it's been extraordinary in terms of the action in the Middle East. You were at The Hague. I'm wondering now.
Hell of a week, hasn't it?
I'm wondering now if you believe that Iran. I'm wondering now, sir, if you believe that Iran has given up its long history of ambitions with nuclear weapons, or what you would like to see from them to prove that they do, and what type of meetings is your administration looking for next week with Iran? So
Iran wants to meet. As you know, their sites were obliterated. They're very evil nuclear sites. They were now has been proven. We had some fake news for a little while. The same people that covered the Hunter Biden laptop was from Russia. The same people that did 3 or 4 other Russia hoax.
But on their ambition.
No, wait, just listen. They came up with something that delayed the credit that our great pilots and these great what talent that was, and they hit it right down in the spot, 52,000 feet. Think of this dark, no moon, you couldn't see a thing, and they hit the refrigerator door, as they say. That's the size of a target and overwhelmingly, and it's amazing what was done. We're the only ones that could have done it, and we took out the two other sites also. In addition to that, we finished them off. That was a very evil intention. I believe that, and again, time will tell, but I don't believe that they're going to go back into nuclear anytime soon. They spent over $1 trillion on nuclear, and they never got it together. And nothing was moved from the site, by the way. To do that is very dangerous. It's very, very heavy material. Those cars were most likely the cars of masons because they were pouring concrete at the top, at the hatch, as you know, the hatch going into the nuclear site. They wanted to reinforce it, and they had some masons there pouring concrete. By the way, that concrete was obliterated. It hit exactly at the concrete. It was, I don't think it had a chance to dry, but everything's down there. It's under millions of tons of rock. Please. Yes.
Your administration has said that El Salvador is one of the safest countries in the hemisphere. So why haven't you yet canceled temporary protected status for that country? Was it part of the deal?
Well, we'll take a look. We've had a great relationship with El Salvador. They have a fantastic leader. They built a massive prison system. And I don't know exactly why, but it's a hell of a system. And we bring people there, and when they go there, they don't get out. And frankly, when they hear they have to go there, they become very nice people. They become very nice people. It's a tough system, but it's a brilliant system. And it's a system done by a very, very good leader. We'll talk about El Salvador. A lot of respect. Yeah, please.
Thank you. A question for you, and then a question for the Attorney General. As you go into negotiations and talks with Iran, are you demanding not only that there would be no uranium production inside of Iran, but also that Iran would turn over all existing stockpiles of uranium?
Well, you know, we're a little early for that, but something like that, yeah, we'll do something like that. Let me say that I've been saying for 25 years, even as a civilian, you cannot let them have a nuclear weapon, and that's what happened. It's been obliterated. It would be years before they could ever get going, and I really think it's probably the last thing. They have to recover from a hell of a tough war.
Would you also be demanding that the IAEA have full rights to inspect in Iran?
Or somebody, yeah, or somebody that we respect, and including ourselves.
And a question for both the President and the Attorney General. Under birthright citizenship, if this is implemented, who would be tasked with actually vetting citizenship? And how, like, would this be a situation where you have nurses and doctors checking for citizenship of parents? Or
This is all pending litigation. It's going to be decided in October by the Supreme Court, and we'll discuss that after the litigation.
if you have an undocumented baby, would that baby then be an enforcement priority?
The violent criminals in our country are the priority now. Let me put it in perspective. Today marked the 2,711th arrest in our country of TDA members, just TDA. Everyone in this room agrees they are one of the most violent criminal organizations in the world. And the Biden administration let them walk into our country for the last 4 years. 2,711 of them today have been arrested in our country. That is the priority of Donald Trump. That is the priority of this country, of Homeland Security, of all of our lawyers, of FBI. That's the priority. That will be discussed in October when the Supreme Court hopefully rules in our favor, and we're very confident of that. But you should all feel safer now that President Trump can deport all of these gangs, and not one district court judge can think they're an emperor over this administration and his executive powers and why the people of the United States elected him.
I just might add one thing, and you know, they used birthright citizenship, some of the worst people, some of the cartels, to get people into our country, just so you know. And again, I say, if you look at the end of the Civil War, the 1800s, it was a very turbulent time. If you take the end day, was it 1869 or whatever, but you take that exact day, that's when the case was filed. And the case ended shortly thereafter. This had to do with the babies of slaves, very, very obviously. And I think we're going to win. People didn't, I don't think they went about discussing it right. I came along and we we looked and we said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We've been looking at birthright citizenship wrong for years, but they've used it. The cartels have used birthright citizenship to get very bad people in, and what Pam's doing and what Todd and everybody else, what they're doing at DOJ and all over, FBI, ICE, Border Patrol, these are incredible people. They're trying to keep our country safe, and they don't want to have people come in. This is just another way that they get illegal immigrants into our country, and in some cases, very, very bad ones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. On your tax bill, if I could for a moment, senators are racing to rewrite parts of it right now after the Senate parliamentarian ruled that sections of it were outside of the process that they're using to get this through. Do you think that senators should respect the decisions of the parliamentarian? And what have you personally done in the last 48 hours to try and get Republican senators who are against the bill to a yes?
Well, look, it's a great bill. It's a massive tax cut. If it's not approved, your taxes will go up by 68%. Think of that, 68, a record, the highest in the history. The Democrats won't approve it only because politically it's so good for the Republicans. The Democrats aren't approving it. But think of what they're not approving. They're not approving border security. We've done a great job at the border, but we have to add some wall. We have to do, various things. We have no money for that. We have no money for the border. We have no money for so many things. But if the Democrats, it'd be interesting to see if we get any Democrat votes. We should. If I were a Democrat, I would absolutely, maybe Fetterman, because he seems to be the most sensible one lately. If I were a Democrat, I would vote for this bill all day long because it's tax cuts and so many other things that are common sense. They're basic things. I think they're doing fine. The parliamentarian's been a little difficult. And I would say that I disagree with the parliamentarian on some things, and on other ways she's been fine. But we'll have to see. It's a big issue. I will tell you this: if that bill doesn't pass, the country will get a 68% tax increase. So think of this: you're a Democrat and you vote against it. That means you're voting in favor, because essentially you're voting in favor of the largest tax hike in the history of our country. And you can't do that. In addition, we're cutting costs by $1.7 trillion, and it won't affect anybody. It's just fraud, waste, and abuse.
Mr. President, a leading global economist just did a 180 and says your tariff plan, you may have outsmarted everybody with it. What is your message?
I love this. I love this question. This is the favorite. This is the best question I've ever been asked, because I've been going through abuse for years on this. Because, as you know, we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, no inflation whatsoever.
But, Mr. President, what is your message to critics who think your tariff plan will cause a recession?
I think they should go back to business school. It's so obvious. It's so obvious. I mean, we're taking in billions and billions of dollars from China and a lot of other countries. We took in, I had a call from somebody in the House and a high official. Sir, we have a problem. We don't know what to do. The books are a mess. I said, what do I mean by the books? The books, the money coming in. It's so terrible. I figured, oh boy, what's this? I don't like this question. I said, so what seems? There's so much money coming in, and there must be some kind of an accounting mistake, because we have hundreds of billions of dollars more money than we thought. I said, do me a favor, go check call me back. You have to call me back. Check the tariff column. Calls me back 2 hours later, says, you're right. We took in $88 billion in tariffs. They have so much money coming in. But more important than the money coming in, we have companies coming in, factories coming in, auto plants being built. AI is being built here instead of being built all over Europe and Asia. We have all of it. We have over $15 trillion, just about, Scott. I think we're right about that number. We went to Saudi Arabia. We went to Qatar, we went to UAE, very smart people, very smart leaders, great leaders, and we took in $5.1 trillion just there. Without the tariffs, I mean, they also liked a thing called November 5th, November 6th, and November 7th. That was a very good little period of time. It's called the presidential election. You know, you used to have one-day election, now you have it go over it, but even if you just took that little period, because it was pretty obvious it was going to be a landslide, and they like that, but they love the tariffs. I had Texas Instruments come in the other day, big company, and he said, we're putting in $60 billion into new plants and new equipment, new everything. Sir, you're going to keep the tariffs, aren't you? Because if I ever took the tariffs off, and we are going to absolutely keep it. And they're worried that somebody that like this communist from New York someday gets elected. I can't believe that's happening. That's a terrible thing for our country, by the way. He's a communist. We're going to go to a communistic state. That's so bad for New York, but the rest of the country is revolting against it. But if somebody got elected, they're afraid that if this was taken off, well, we're going to guarantee it's never going to be taken off. And again, we're taking in think of this, hundreds of billions of dollars. And they were all confused because they've never seen this before. You know, it's always the other way. We don't have enough money. So much money is coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen. But most importantly, we have factories being built, car plants being built, companies moving to our country like never before. If you look at 15 trillion, and that's only in a few months. You know, I haven't been here that long. Presidents, like the last one, was a disaster. He's the worst president in the history of our country, by the way. What he did on our border can never, ever be forgotten. To me, that's the worst of all the things. And he's done some terrible things, grossly incompetent. Nobody knew it was him because I don't think it was him. I think it was whoever was controlling the auto pen. But our country is doing great. And those leaders and other leaders, I just left, as you know, a large group of the most highly respected people. And that includes big countries. When you look at Germany and France and Spain, although Spain didn't come through, but they will. By the way, guaranteed they will. That was the only country that sort of tried to hold back on putting up the money. But just so you know, they said, it's unbelievable what's happened to the USA. You were a dead country. We didn't respect the country, the leader. You were dead as a doornail. One said to me, you went from being a dead country, you are right now the hottest country anywhere in the world. The whole world is talking about the USA, and everybody wants a part of it, and they're pouring into our country, and you're going to see those numbers. Thank you for that question.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question about trade. Secretary Bessent has said that he hopes tariff deals with major partners will be done by Labor Day. So if some deals are not done by your July 9th deadline, will some countries' tariffs go back up, or will they stay where they are now?
Well, there are some countries that are used to ripping us off, to be honest with you. And I don't want to name them, but you sort of can name them. And they're so used to just, taking it billions and billions of, look, we had a trade deficit of more than $1 trillion. Think of it, a trade deficit. That's because nobody cared. We cared a lot when, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariff. We had the greatest economy in history up until now. I think we're going to blow it away. But during my time, and especially prior to COVID, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I think we're going to blow it away now based on the kind of numbers that we're seeing. But some countries are very angry because they've been ripping us off for years. They've been making billions and billions of dollars. There was nobody to negotiate with. They could do whatever they want. They charge us tariffs, by the way, at numbers that we've never seen before. And we ended up losing much more than $1 trillion a year. $1 trillion a year on trade. And now they're being met with a force that's far greater than them, and they don't like it. So they're upset because instead of making, $5 billion, they're going to break even. Or they'll make a little bit. I want to be nice. They'll make a little bit. Or we'll make a little bit. It's a big difference. Yeah, please go.
All right, you've just been listening to President Donald Trump at the White House. They are holding a news conference after the Supreme Court issued a major ruling basically limiting the powers of federal judges to issue nationwide injunctions. Let's bring in CBS News White House reporter Willie James Inman for more of this. And Willie, what stood out to you from that news conference we just listened to?
Hey there, Mugo. Well, the president celebrating this move, essentially calling it not only an important decision, but saying that it was a decision based on common sense. The Supreme Court siding with him not on the merits of the case, but when it comes to federal judges in districts across the country issuing nationwide injunctions. So essentially what that means is perhaps states, other jurisdictions within the country can challenge this piece by piece, state by state. We, of course, know that the president, in signing this executive order, sought to change the rule book when it comes to the 14th Amendment, essentially guaranteeing those individuals born on U.S. soil U.S. citizenship. This largely would affect those undocumented migrants, people who have temporary status, parents who have temporary status within the United States. Those children would no longer be considered American citizens. So certainly a challenge. It came about shortly after the president issued this executive order, and the president touched on other things as well. But I'll point out, when asked, the Attorney General Pam Bondi was asked about whether or not the government had confidence in terms of its fight to end birthright citizenship in this way, and she essentially said that she was very confident that they would prevail on the merits of that case, predicting that the Supreme Court would make a decision months down the line. So a lot to unpack in this news conference. This certainly has been a week for the President of the United States. Of course, it was just about a week ago when he announced to the world that the U.S. had attacked Iran. We have trade that was mentioned, the President saying trade deals are coming, they're in the pipeline, but certainly a successful week. The White House is trying to pitch to American people that they've had a successful week here in the second Trump administration within this week, Nugo.
They certainly are. Willie James Inman at the White House for us. Thank you so much for your time. So let's go back now and bring in CBS News chief legal correspondent Jan Crawford. Jan, your reaction to what the president and Attorney General Pam Bondi had to say about the ruling on nationwide injunctions.
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't know what the Attorney General is talking about with October. This is not on the docket to consider the merits of birthright citizenship. The only thing I could think of is that they're going to refuse to take up this case and review all the lower court decisions that have said this is blatantly unconstitutional, and they release a big orders list before they start the new term the first Monday in October. But there's nothing on the horizon right now that the court is going to be weighing the merits of birthright citizenship. This is only focused on that issue, as we heard, as Willie explained, nationwide injunctions. And obviously you could tell, I thought from the president's tone, that this is really for them. This is not about birthright citizenship. They see a true victory here because of the 40 or so other nationwide injunctions that judges have entered, blocking all of those other programs. Obviously, you know, he gave a defense of birthright citizenship. That defense, you know, and how he he gave a defense of his executive order that would change birthright citizenship. That's lost at every turn in the courts. And so to me, what I thought was most striking was that this and their like joy, really almost, that you could see is because of all the other cases. I expect the administration to go into these federal courts as soon as next week and ask all of these other federal district court judges and all of these other issues to scale back the scope of those nationwide injunctions. And I think they'll win some of those. So that, I think, could be a much bigger win, well beyond this whole issue of birthright citizenship, which I think is really going nowhere.
That you clarify that at the beginning, because over and over again we heard the Attorney General talking about this case in October, and I kept wondering, well, Jan never mentioned that. So I'm glad you clarified it.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. Okay, we are now going to bring in Jessica Levinson. She is a CBS News legal contributor and a professor at Loyola Law School. Jessica, your takeaway from what we heard there from the president and Attorney General Pam Bondi.
Let's be clear. If Jan never mentioned it, it's for a reason, because the merits of this case are not before the court. And the Trump administration specifically opted not to appeal the merits of this birthright citizenship order to the Supreme Court. As Jan pointed out, the Trump administration has lost in every court challenge when it comes to the president's executive order concerning birthright citizenship. This case is about nationwide injunctions. This case is about the scope of relief that people can get when they walk into federal court and say, there's a problem with this executive order. And what the court is saying today, a 6-3 majority, is that nationwide injunctions are not the right relief to provide, that people need to, for instance, form classes, get class certification, and bring a class action suit if they want broader relief than the relief that can be granted if one individual or group or even a state sues. So this is not about birthright citizenship, except of course that's the executive order that was challenged, and that was what kind of started this particular case. But the court went to pains to say, we're not ruling on the constitutionality of birthright citizenship.
And Jessica, I have to ask here, what comes next on all those other cases that judges basically issued a nationwide injunction on? Do you expect the White House is now going to go back and ensure that those rulings are changed in some way or form?
I think they're going to go back to the vast majority, if not all of those cases, and say, look at what the Supreme Court has just said. This nationwide injunction is too broad, and essentially that the relief that can be granted is much narrower. It's just the people who walked into court and said, we have something called legal standing, and there's an issue with this executive order. Now, again, we should be clear that people can ask for class certification. So this is a long way of saying, yes, I think that the Trump administration will go back to the many cases where judges have issued nationwide injunctions and have said, you don't have the power to do this. It's too broad.
And I think you sort of mentioned this earlier, but now for lawyers and for plaintiffs, when they are bringing these cases to judges, is the goal here to ensure that multiple people in multiple states are involved in those cases?
It's a question that bears repeating. So I think it's good to focus on this question. What does this mean? I mean, this ruling has implications, again, far beyond the birthright citizenship executive order. So what does this mean for lawyers? It means that when you want to challenge an executive order, that either the relief that you can get will be more limited. It will be limited to the people or group who are filing the case, or it could be broader, but you have to go through an additional process. You have to have a class of people that are affected by the executive order. You have to get them to be certified. There are specific requirements that you have to meet. And then there could be that broader relief. So this certainly is a change to how, at least recently, federal judges have provided relief when it comes to challenges to executive orders. And obviously, we're seeing many more executive orders than we have in the past.
Jessica Levinson, thank you so much for breaking down this very important topic for us. Appreciate your analysis today.